I'm Jackie.
And I'm Ashley. Welcome back to Dumb Witch Club.
I was trying to think how to describe where we're at right now, what kind of mood we're in. When I say we, it's a collective mood, always a collective mood.
Obviously.
Yeah. I feel like we're struggling.
A little.
I feel like we're struggling. We're struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
But we're also laughing a lot. It's kind of kooky.
You have to.
You do have to.
You have to. If you aren't laughing, then you're just screaming or...
Yes.
Or you're just not.
Which you're right.
Maybe worse.
Oh, I think those are worse.
Yeah.
Although I'm like, I think I've already done both of those today.
Yeah.
So.
Like multiple times today.
I know. Wow.
It's like the third time we've done something in unison that...
We won't talk about what the other thing was.
Damn.
It was so funny. We can't do it
really
on this channel.
Funny. We
was
can't
hilarious.
do it. Well, maybe we could do it. Maybe we could do it for a few select special people, but we can't.
I'm like, can you blur things out? That'd be funny. Anyways, yeah. So we're in a mood. We're in a time. I feel like it's appropriate to the season. Yeah. You know, we are in the midst of December. We are in the midst of, I don't know, frenetic energy. We just had, like the season start, and now it's already like halfway over.
Yeah.
It's just been a lot.
Yeah, we literally just talked about the void period that happens between Thanksgiving and the start of sort of the next holiday season, whatever, December, and how like we don't know what day it is and you don't know what you're doing and like everything feels early. And then it happened exactly what we talked about. So we should have been prepared to know what to do.
I really thought that regularly addressing how dumb of witches we are would help us be less dumb.
Yeah, that was like kind of one of the main points.
I know.
But
it has not really worked yet.
No,
maybe
not
it
really.
will.
It's like, I hope other people are benefiting because
we're not.
Because we're not.
No, we are.
No,
That's
we
not
are.
true.
We
We
are.
are. We are putting a negative spin on that in this moment.
And that's just because we're in this mood and it was going to turn into that because everything we're talking about right now is just going to turn into that. But that's, yes, definitely not true. But it can feel like that.
I know. But you know what we need? We need to watch, well, a lot of things.
I'm like, what?
Stiff drink.
What?
No. We need to watch some of our favorite holiday movies to get in the spirit.
Best thing.
It's the best thing.
I love it. I am and I know that you are too, but there are people that are not like this, which is very hard for me to understand. But I am a person that rewatches my favorites.
Duh.
Ad nauseum.
Duh.
Do you know, though, that there are people that exist that are like, I don't rewatch movies. I've already seen that.
Yeah, I've heard of those people, and that's a red flag for me.
It is for me, because I don't, okay.
So, well, then what are you doing all the time?
What are you doing? You're just watching new things? That's so chaotic.
It's so chaotic. And how do you know if it's good or not?
You can't know.
Can't know.
That's the comfort of rewatching something, is you know exactly how it's going to go. So there's that comfort in like, this is going to happen and then that's going to, but it always still feels really good and there's things that you don't remember.
But you also get to look forward to like your favorite lines and your favorite scenes, and you get to repeat them all the time whenever you want. It's hilarious. I don't know. I think it's more fun.
I think it's I don't understand what people are consuming. I mean, look, I like to watch new things too, because then you develop new favorites. But people that don't rewatch or reread things,
reread is another one. I mean, yeah, for me, reading, I definitely don't want to reread everything I've ever read, or rewatch everything I've ever watched. I guess it's the same thing.
No, that's true.
But there are certain things I definitely do.
Yeah, they become like hallmarks of certain times and certain moods. And imagine never watching Pee-wee's Big Adventure ever again. Don't imagine it. Never mind. Never mind.
I'm already sad.
I know, it's horrible. It's like...
It makes me really sad, like, legitimately. Even though, like, I know it lives in my mind and I have it all memorized. But, like, that's so sad to me.
It is sad. It's, for me, like, it's like leaving behind friends that you know.
Yes, or it's like a death. Like, somebody dies.
Yeah, it is like that.
That's awful.
Mm-hmm. So what have you watched so far?
Okay, so all we've done is Home Alone and Home Alone 2 Lost in New York.
Love.
And we did them back to back.
Okay.
Which I rarely do. I'm not a binge watcher. Like, that type of style of viewing is not my style at all.
It's not.
But it kind of fit the circumstance. You know, it was like decorating and we're having it on. But we didn't have it on in the background. We, like, sat and properly watched it. And anyways, yeah. So that's been the extent of it so far. So I have many, many favorites yet
I love that.
to come.
Before you tell me more, I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
Out of Home Alone and Home Alone 2, which one is better?
Home Alone?
Okay.
No question. Home Alone, and I will go on the record, is one of my favorite movies, period.
It's a great movie.
Not just holiday movie. It is perfect. The script is excellent. I could go on and on.
That's okay.
I know everything about it. I've watched it with commentary, like, multiple times. Like, I know everything about it. I love Home Alone.
I feel like this needs to be, like, a special episode or something at some point.
I'm very passionate about this.
You're,
it's, like kind of
extremely
silly.
effusive about Home Alone. And I love it. I'm here for it. I love that.
And I love, like, my actual, like, favorite director is David Lynch. So I'm not, like, watching a bunch of, like, fruity kid movies. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
I'm, like, into, like, messed up stuff.
Yeah.
And Home Alone.
I am not into messed up stuff. I'm into, like, My Little Pony. And
That's very true.
It's also Home Alone.
Yes. So it reaches across all generations and types.
I love that. That's amazing. I agree with you. I do love the New York parts of the second one.
I think it is a very good sequel.
Yeah, it's a good, like, it's not terrible.
No.
Because it could have been.
Well, and then they, like, continued the franchise with, like,
discuss.
No.
If it's not Macaulay Culkin, we just don't.
If it's not Macaulay Culkin, I don't want it.
That should be
I'll go on the record for that as well.
Yes, you are. You are on the record.
I don't care.
It's great. That should be a t-shirt. I might make you a t-shirt that says that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Holiday gifting season is here. So.
It is. Like, I don't have all of your things already picked out.
I know. But still, there's always next year.
Yeah. Or there's always just any time. So.
Well, before we move on, I need to know, what have you watched and where are you at?
So let's see. We haven't watched the big ones because my partner likes to save the big ones until closer to the Christmas holiday.
How much closer?
I don't know. Like, so far I have not been able to...
And how many are big ones? How much time do you need?
Yeah, this is like, all these questions are really great questions.
I should be asking him and not you.
Yeah, and he's the earth sign, so he will give you, like, a spreadsheet about, like, what this is. But the way that I've been able to understand it, there's no science behind this, and it also doesn't matter what I think about the movie.
It's just a very singular opinion. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Christmas Vacation hasn't happened.
Well, I haven't. That's a top favorite.
I mean, it is.
It's so
good. So good.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus, underrated in that movie as well.
Oh, man. So underrated.
Also, the costumes in that movie, underrated. Underrecognized.
I
love it.
Schwitz.
I know. I just love it.
Her dress is that bustier.
Yes, with like a bow thing, and then Beverly D'Angelo is so beautiful, and I love that red skirt and like the white top she has at the end. Whew.
And doesn't she wear sort of like a light blue? It's like an Angora.
Yes.
Oh,
at a different point. Absolutely. I love that.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So no, haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, we haven't.
Although clearly very familiar with it.
Yes.
One of the favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, that one has been saved. I think I've done some of the classics. I watched Christmas in Connecticut the other night. Yeah, we've watched Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We've done some of the classics, but like Elf hasn't happened, Christmas Vacation hasn't happened.
Well, and you know what I always watch too is, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I just like weep and cry.
Totally.
Through like the entire like second half. Mm-hmm. And the colorized version is beautiful.
It actually is.
And Donna Reed. is just an angel.
She's unbelievable.
Amazing.
I know, I agree.
Amazing. And now I'm reminded of the Gilmore Girls episode where Rory does the Donna Reed dinner.
Oh, yeah,
and then
the Donna Reed dinner.
Anyways, okay, we are digressing too much.
Yes,
so
that'll all happen, and that is a comfort, and that is lovely, and it's already helped me make me feel better just by talking about it.
I actually feel a lot better too. So it just feels like I have something to look forward to.
Truly is a wonderful life.
Yes.
Very cheesy.
Good old Clarence. Anyways, all right. Let's move on to our why though segment, because we need to understand why we are feeling these ways. And
agreed.
We need y'all to understand why you're feeling however you're feeling, which who knows. So for day of recording specifically, I want to say we just had the full moon in Gemini.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it was kind of a doozy. The full moon, full moon energy is very illuminating. And I feel like there was a lot of information, intense information. I just feel like it was a strong kind of energy. And I don't want to say it was actually negative, but it was very forward. I felt almost oppressed by it.
I did too. I'm wondering if it's because of it happening during Sagittarius season. Maybe that's
that's always the full moon in Gemini.
Maybe that's what's heightening it, is that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, obviously it's always working with those polarity energies. Sure. There's always that tension sort of, and again, like we've talked about, tension doesn't have to be bad, but sometimes it is. And if it's even good, it's there. So I just feel and then there was also that full moon aligned with the Mars in retrograde, which remains also in Gemini. Right. So I just feel like there was a lot of that kind of air sign, information, communication, kind of pulling out kind of energy. I don't know. So it was, I feel like it was bumpy. It was a bumpy road.
I agree. And you're right, connecting with the Mars in Gemini and in retrograde too, it's bumpy, and then you're okay, that's feeling okay, and then it's bumpy again, and then it's coming up again.
Yes, because that retrograde energy is repeat,
right.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So it's definitely been a lot. What do we have on the horizon?
Well, we're changing. Things are changing.
That's a relief. Tell me more.
Yeah, it's a relief. We still have a lot of planets that are out of bounds, but it's not feeling as crazy because things are changing. So Mercury moved into Capricorn.
Yes, so from Sagittarius into Capricorn. Okay.
Right.
Which is a more earth-grounded kind of... I always feel like Mercury in Capricorn is you say what you mean and you mean what you say.
100%. It's interesting because, Mercury in Sagittarius, and we discussed this, it's also that, but it's fire. So it's that, but it's that Sagittarian sort of bluntness.
Yes, and there's almost relentlessness to that.
Totally.
Where I feel like the Capricorn energy is just matter of fact.
It is. It's very matter of fact. It's similar in that way, slightly similar, but it's not as harsh. It's not as exacting. It's a little bit more, okay, no, this is the reality. Come on.
It's just here it is.
Here it is.
It's right here.
You know it. Yeah. We know it. We all know it. It's okay.
No, so I feel like that is, okay, so that's good. And also, as we know, the sun will soon be in Capricorn as well. I think Venus has moved or is moving into Capricorn very soon.
Venus moves, by the time everybody's watching this, listening to this, it will be.
Okay. So when things, get in alignment, that's also, some more consistent kind of energy flowing.
Yeah.
And so, okay, that's good. That's very good.
Feeling good, right?
Yes.
Well, it will be anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also had of note here that on December 20th, Jupiter will be entering Aries. So Jupiter first entered Aries back in May. Then it went in retrograde back through Pisces, and then went direct again, back up through Pisces, getting to Aries again. So I feel like that's sort of, Aries has that active, cardinal fire energy.
Right.
And so it's kind of an opportunity to maybe you started something and maybe it kind of dissipated into the, the ether of Pisces energy.
Sure.
And maybe it's coming back now. So it's an opportunity to restart something that, maybe you did start. or to start something new based on stuff you learned, over the months or whatever. So I feel like that's also like a kind of a pulling, in a positive way.
Yeah, I really like that because maybe now it'll finally feel like you kind of can even take that on or look at that because the other energy is feeling really grounded and really realistic.
Exactly.
And it's not as chaotic. And so facing sort of like these Jupiter ideals, right? They're always kind of these bigger things, like these bigger picture things.
Totally.
So,
which that is hinting. Okay. So, is there anything else that you actually want to mention for why though? Because if not, I feel like that is a perfect segue.
Overall, I mean, I think we hit it, but I think it's feeling more stable. It's feeling more grounded. We're moving past sort of some of the chaos. I think that leaning into it would be a really good idea, sort of like connecting back to what we talked about in our last episode or last couple of them, sort of embracing that hibernation and that wintering. Yeah. Embrace that energy. Yeah. Like if things are feeling stable, don't try to poke them.
Let them be stable.
Let them be stable. Let your relationships just be, let everything be cool. Maybe it'll soothe some of that.
Like, I know you're not calling me out with that at all.
No, I would never do that. I don't call people out. I validate and empower.
Only. Thank you, Scorpio friend.
Welcome, Leo's friend.
I love you.
I love you too. It's all going to be okay.
Oh, yes. Okay. I actually feel more that way than I did
earlier. I'm glad. That is amazing.
So as I hinted that she was hinting at, we have decided today to devote our Big Witch energy to talking about the planets. So sort of an astrology basics kind of concept going over each of the planets. And we're not going to get into other planetary bodies or, points, which may be part of stuff we talk about later.
Sure.
But let's get into it.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
Yeah. So why even cover this? What do planets have to do with astrology?
Yeah. Why even cover this? It's never mind. Okay, all done. Never mind.
We're not going to do it.
Yeah, it's a big topic, but it's an important one. And it's one that I think a lot of people have questions about. It's one of those topics I feel like that people have just a lot of questions. Like, what do these planets mean? Do I have all of them? Is all of that in my chart? Well, the answer is yes, you do.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes, you do.
Because all the planets exist all the time. Yes. And they are all somewhere.
They're all somewhere all the time. They were there when you were born. They're here now. So, but yeah, I think it's a big question. And like, okay, well, what does that mean for me? What are the planets, symbolize? What does that mean for me personally? What does it mean at all? What does it mean?
Yeah, exactly. So Western astrology really begins at the planetary level, meaning that understanding each of the planets and kind of what they do symbolize, because astrology is a symbolic language. It's a symbolic way of understanding ourselves, the world around us, like we've talked about.
Right.
So you have to begin to understand and piece together the symbolism so that you can then understand how it translates to yourself and what it all means.
Right. Where it starts to get like very complex.
Well, and yes, we are covering like just a very basic level at this point. It continues to grow in complexity. And as you have a journey of learning about astrology, you can get as complex as you want to.
Exactly.
But until then, we are going to start with some of the basics. So we, as astrology in general, Western astrology, we're including the sun and the moon. They are not technically planets. Obviously, the sun is a star, essentially, that all the planets rotate around. And then the moon is rotates around the Earth, but they still count. So we call them planets because they're super important in astrology and understanding specifically your personal astrology.
Yep. Yeah, they just, for our purposes of understanding things, they get to be included. And sometimes they call them luminaries.
Right, exactly.
Refer to them as luminaries just to sort of differentiate the two. But really, they're just kind of, they're coupled in with all of the others.
Yes. And so we can broadly categorize the planets as inner planets or personal planets. Sometimes the and so that would include the sun and the moon, obviously, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So when we get beyond that, we can just broadly categorize those as the outer planets. But we can also break that down a little bit more into like social planets, which are kind of the second tier of removed, and then the outer, even further out 3. And these are all based on the distance from the sun, essentially, which influences like how long the planet's orbit around the sun is, which influences how much time a planet spends in any given sign in the zodiac wheel, and how long it takes to complete the zodiac.
Cycle. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a really good explanation. That was a lot of layers.
Once I get going, pretty good.
But it helps to have that broken down, because I think that's another thing too. Like, people get a little bit overwhelmed with just like, well, they hear like planets and they know there's like, okay, there's all these planets, but are some more important and some less important? Or like, wait, but then what's the big 3? And like, okay, I kind of know that, right? Like sun, moon, okay, but does that have to do with the planet? It does get confusing. So it's kind of nice, okay, we're going to break this down. We have the personal ones, we're going to talk about that. The social ones, we're going to talk about that. And then the generational ones, we're going to talk about those. Yes. And you'll see like what we mean, and they're all important.
Yes, and also to say, when we talk about like big 3, that usually means sun, moon, and ascendant or rising sign, which is not based on a planetary location. It is based on a point in space where something is happening at the time that you're born. It's like the point on the horizon. So anyway, just to overcomplicate things already.
Yeah, exactly.
There are other aspects of astrology that are not planets that have still a lot of importance. So, but we're going to, start with
focus
the planets,
on these. Yes.
And we're going to get into it. So let's start with the sun.
Okay.
Because, that's kind of the center. And I think it's really interesting. Like, astrology began, however many thousands of years ago. And that was before there was an understanding that the sun was actually the center of the universe.
Right.
And yet the sun is the center of astrology. And the sun is yourself and sort of your most natural or pure self-expression, right?
Yeah. Yeah, your core.
Right.
Who you like authentically are, I think is sometimes how they describe sun.
And the sun symbolizes power.
Yeah.
And that can be like personal power. It symbolizes like life force, manifestation, like the ability to bring to yourself what you want to bring to yourself. So for each planet, there is something called a rulership, and there's something called exaltation, and then there's detriment and fall. So just to define what those are, every planet rules in an astrological sign, or more than one. And that's just the sign that the planet is most aligned with, is kind of the best expression of that energy, kind of is the most comfortable, most at home there.
Right.
And so the sun rules Leo, and it's exalted in Aries. Exalted is kind of the second most comfortable, the second most comfortable sign for the planet to be in. And then something called the fall, which is in the sign that is opposite of the exaltation, is the sign that's considered to be the weakest point, or the weakest expression of that planet's energy. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything negative or bad, especially if it's in your own chart. Like if you somehow had, like, which you could, every planet in the sign of its fall, you know what I mean? I mean, whatever, I don't know how likely any of that is, but it could happen. And so it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that your astrology's weak. It just means, and when there's different aspects and all kinds of different things, but it just means that you have to be aware that maybe that is a place to focus for growth.
Absolutely.
Or it's a place to be just aware.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like we've talked about, just because there is conflict or something isn't completely comfortable or stable, it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't just mean it's negative forever. It means that that's just an area that you might have to pay a little bit more attention to, but it's an area that is rife with the possibility for massive growth.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. And that's makes it like a really unique placement, actually.
It really does. Because sometimes comfort isn't the best thing either, you know?
Very true. So, okay. So the sun rules Leo. It's exalted in Aries. The fall is in Libra. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of just info.
Yeah. And then sun, you know, most people are aware of it because it's kind of like your main sign
right.
that you are. When people ask you what sign are you, and you know based on your birthday, that's related to your sun. That's your sun sign.
Yeah, that's like generally what your sign is, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Anything else about the sun?
I think we did the sun some justice. I think
okay.
we did.
Well, we definitely need to as much as possible.
Yeah, well, why is that? Why would you say something like that?
Because I'm a Leo.
Oh, you are?
And I tell everyone as often as possible.
Oh, you do? That's Leo energy? Wow.
Also rising Aries. So, yeah, it's really a mess over here.
Interesting.
I'm sure you couldn't tell at all.
Oh, no, never.
Yeah, not at all.
Never know.
Okay, we're going to move on next to the moon.
Aww.
Yeah, I know, right? I feel like the moon is really sweet energy.
I know. Maybe we're just attaching that to it, but...
Well, I mean, that's all anyone's doing with any of this anyways,
True.
Isn't it?
True.
No, I think I don't think the sun has sweet energy.
No, it doesn't.
The sun is a ball of fire, you know, like it's burning. So, no, the moon it reflects light.
Yeah.
It doesn't generate its own light. It's not a ball of fire in the universe. It's got like really pretty reflective illumination.
It looked beautiful tonight, just side
So
note.
beautiful.
Because we're just like coming out of the full moon and it's still so full, and it's like, it's this beautiful buttery sort of golden.
It's like golden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
really
pretty.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, the moon is about your internal, emotional, kind of like if the sun is sort of the fulfillment of your soul expression, the moon is your soul.
Yes. I know. It's like I read something one time where they were talking about how with your sun, it's the things that you are being and the things that you are doing. Mm-hmm. And with the moon, it's those same things, but it's the feeling and the emoting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting, too, just to say, because this is my case, if you have a sun and moon in the same sign, you can tend to be like a very, I don't know, sort of obvious person. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like there's not a lot hidden, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I have secrets, don't get me wrong.
But for sure.
It's kind of like, I'm going to tell you, and this is what it is, and it's going to be here, and it's going to be here, and I'm just like, there it is, you know?
Yeah, it's just going to come out, like it's going to show.
Yeah, because your sort of internal and external worlds are more aligned, because they're sort of channeling through the same sign energy.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't know about that.
Yeah.
Could never be me.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
I'll just say it doesn't make life easier.
No.
In fact, sometimes I mean, nothing is easier or harder. It's all perspective.
Yeah.
But I feel like it doesn't make it easier.
No, nothing really makes anything easier.
No.
Like we talked about, even when things are in their comfortable placements or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's just easy, simple, like everything's going to go fine. No, it certainly doesn't mean that, as anyone can attest to. But.
Yeah, no, exactly. So let's see. What else? Oh, the moon is the most mutable of all of the planets, or, the luminaries and planets, because it changes so frequently.
Right.
The sun is on a 1-year cycle. The sun is its own thing, and we ascribe the calendar based on the sun and the seasons, so that's like 1 year, and then the moon changes every 28 days, and within those days it changes every single day. So the moon is only in one sign for a couple of days,
right?
And then the moon will have periods being void, of course, and then going back into the next sign. So the moon is changing all the time.
I love that she's just doing her thing.
Yeah, and it's very predictable.
Very predictable. But it just makes so much sense and she's just in this sign, and then she's comfortable there, and then she moves on to this, and then moves on to this, and everything I just love it.
I think it's a really good example of changeable energy not being chaotic.
That's a really good point, because it isn't at all.
Nope. It's very predictable. It's right on schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people might say they feel chaotic when it is a full moon.
Well, sure. I feel like that's different.
That's different.
You know?
Yeah.
That's different. So.
Lovely. Also feel like we did the moon some justice with that one.
Yes. I do like the moon. Oh, yeah. So the moon rules Cancer, which is kind of no surprise. Cancer is that nurturing, watery, mother energy. Mm-hmm. So you'll notice all of the planets, the sign of their rulership really has like the same energy. I mean, that's kind of what it means, you know?
Yeah, totally embodies it. It's cool.
And the moon's fall is actually in Scorpio. So the moon in Scorpio which we just had, full and new moon in Scorpio, and we just had all of that stuff, you know, in the Taurus and the eclipse season and all of that. So, you know, it kind of makes sense. Like, that's a particularly rough kind of place for the moon to be. So, yeah. Yep. And it's there, like, every month at some point, so.
Right. Just got to deal with it.
Yeah. Or, you know, be aware.
It's going to happen. Yeah, just be aware. As we're not, as we say, as we're not aware.
But they can be aware.
They can be aware.
They can be better than us.
They can. They should be. That's what we're here for.
Truly. Okay. So, next is Mercury.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite to love to hate Mercury.
They've just really, really latched onto that Mercury.
Yeah. Well, specifically the retrograde, which I know we've talked about a bunch of times, but
they take it personally. I get it.
Yeah. That's really, that was great. That was
Thanks.
Fun. Yeah. That's good.
Thank you. You don't mean that, but it's okay.
You want me to mean it, though.
That's okay.
No, I like when you make a joke that's not funny. I actually really like that.
Perfect.
I like it. It
you
makes
laugh
me
just
laugh.
as much.
I know.
See, I'm fine with that. I don't care. As long as you laugh. As long as everybody laughs, it really doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't.
Ooh, okay. All right. I actually need to stop laughing. Okay, so Mercury... famously symbolizes communication and also like transportation and travel and interesting like trade.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that combines like transportation and communication, you know?
That's
so
true.
Yeah, especially if you think about like the history of astrology and how important like trade was and like traveling to places and trying to do all of that stuff. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Again, the sign everyone loves to hate, or when technology's going wrong, they're like, Mercury must be in retrograde. Yeah. But it's it kind of concerns your day-to-day expression, your communication style.
Yes, if you're talking about how it like kind of applies to you personally, right? Mm-hmm. It's like your own communication style or your own kind of way of interacting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also like the aspect of it that it's the way that you sort of decode and process like information yourself too. So not just how you're communicating out, but how you kind of like take communication from others and process and decide, you know, how that is and how you're going to communicate about it.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. My Mercury's in Leo too, so, you know.
Right.
Anyways.
Yes. Well, and good that you bring that up because your Mercury can only ever be in your sun sign or an adjacent sign because it's so close to the sun.
Yes, exactly.
So my Mercury's in Scorpio.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, I don't know what, and I know it depends on, like, the planets are moving at a constant rate. There's all these things.
Yes.
But, so I don't know how likely it is if it's in the sign or the ones next to it, you know? But I feel like, I mean, obviously it has to be one of the three, so.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Mercury has an 88-day cycle, which means that it's changing. If you 88 divided by 12, not doing the math, but that's about how long it's in every sign. Yeah. So also, it's interesting too, Mercury's like a small planet and it's a fast planet. So sometimes when Mercury is in whatever sign it's in, or not even in your own chart, but just in general, it changes rapidly. So there can be like rapid changes or big ups and downs that can happen when Mercury's energy is sort of impacting.
Mm-hmm. It's talking.
Yeah.
Moving.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Then, exactly. Mm-hmm. I know. It makes a ton of sense. Well, and that's why I think the retrogrades do get a lot of hype, you know. I know. I get it. And they happen often. There's 3 or 4 retrogrades every calendar year. So it's like every couple months it's happening again. And Yeah. So there's Mercury for you. Oh, Mercury rules Gemini, which makes sense. Air sign, communication, all of that. Also traditional ruler of Virgo, or it's exalted in Virgo as well. So, yes.
Nice.
All right.
Good old Mercury. Okay.
Good old Mercury.
What comes next?
So next is Venus. So going, by the direction of, further out from the sun. So Venus has a 224.5 day orbit, which means that for about 25 days it's in the same sign. Again, very close to the sun. Right. So often your Venus will be in the same sign as your sun or one of the adjacent signs. Because it has a very similar, kind of path that it's going around.
Yeah.
Venus is about, the goddess of love, right?
Yeah.
So, it's about love.
Yeah. I feel like Venus gets maybe not the exact same attention as Mercury does, but it's probably the next one in line for what people focus on, because everybody wants to talk about relationships. That's why, because everyone wants to talk about relationships and what's good for you and what's not, and should she be dating him, and maybe she shouldn't.
No, exactly. And it is. I mean, that Venus does symbolize relationships and romantic love and that kind of love, but also, creativity and beauty. And aesthetics and self-love, I feel, can fall into that as well. Yeah.
I love that we've expanded to looking at it that way, because I feel like traditionally there was such a focus, sort of a heteronormative focus.
Totally.
Where, we don't need to just be, certainly, relationships, romance, all that stuff, it can be part of it. It is part of it. But I like that we're expanding on that.
Absolutely. And I think that, but even the entire time, traditionally, Venus has ruled Taurus and Libra, right, which is day and night energies. Yeah. And it's sort of a non-binary kind of situation already.
Good point.
Yeah. So I feel like now we're finally catching up with
now we're realizing, right? What was there the whole time? We're oh.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. So the other interesting thing that I learned about Venus that I think is cool and relevant is that Venus actually rotates backwards, meaning it rotates east to west instead of west to east. And the only other planet that rotates backwards like that is Uranus. And at the time, Venus was one of the planets we could see, and it was known. Uranus had not been discovered yet, but they have that in common. And the interesting thing is that there was already an association between Venus and Uranus, because Uranus is the father of Venus in mythology.
Amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah. So it's stuff, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you really can't. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yes.
The more you know.
The more you know, as usual. They should sponsor us. Who are they?
They really should. PBS. Is it PBS? I don't know.
We were supposed to give them money. They don't give out money.
Yeah, no, we give them money.
Yeah, I know.
They birthed Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
I know. And Sesame Street.
Sesame Street. Another Christmas on Sesame Street.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh, yes.
Oh, so good.
It's so good. I know. So I feel like nobody watches that.
Side note. But yes, nobody watches that. It's so good.
Well, they should. They should start watching it. Look it up. It's probably on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So are we. And it is, too.
They should sponsor us, too. Whatever.
We're shut up.
Okay, moving on to Mars. The next planet is Mars.
Okay, let's do it.
Mars also, I feel like it has a reputation for trouble. Yep. It has a reputation for aggression and war and all this stuff. And, I don't think that's fully accurate. I think it is about aggression. It's about assertiveness.
Yeah.
It's about action and energy. And then I had here too, if Venus is about your desires, then Mars is about the fulfillment of your desires. It's about taking the action that is needed to fulfill your passion.
Yeah. And again, I think it's great that we are expanding on these things and, opening up these concepts, because, Mars being associated with everything traditionally, like what you just said, with the war and aggression and all this kind of stuff, that, and it's also put on the gender binary. So it's that war and that aggression, it's such a male energy, right? And it's contrasting with Venus, which is the female energy. And it's it doesn't, that's not it. It's exactly what you just said. desires that Venus sort of engenders, Mars can bring about. It's an energy. It's not necessarily masculine or feminine or anything like that. It's an energy. It's a courage and initiative to kind of like...
Yes, I like those words.
Yeah, to like, actually accomplish those things. And one of the other things I made a note of on it was it's the self-assertion. Like, there's a lot that are about self-concept, right? Who am I and all these kind of things. And Mars is that, I know that stuff because of these other things, but this is me showing you. Mm-hmm. This is me being it.
Absolutely true. And I love those words that you were just using. And that connects right into Mars being the ruler of Aries. And Aries being that sign energy of that I am, that identity fulfillment kind of purpose. Yes. Mm-hmm. And everyone has and needs both of those complementary energies. Mm-hmm. Like that Venus energy and that Mars energy. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. So Mars is the last of the personal planets. And sometimes you don't hear, or you mainly hear about the personal planets.
Right.
And it makes sense because they are changing, more often. They are personally affecting you more. People who are born near the same time have different placements in almost all of these, or within the same year. So it does make sense. But moving out to the next set, the next planet is Jupiter. So Jupiter is on a 12-year cycle and spends about 1 year in each sign. So you can already see that everyone born within that year all have the same Jupiter.
Right.
So that kind of links people born within that year. And it's not necessarily a calendar year. It's kind of just, whenever that ends up starting. Mm-hmm. So, that's why it's a social planet.
Right.
Because it kind of connects people in a similar time period, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really interesting, like how people will sort of share that, and then that contributes to kind of like, people being like really similar within their sort of peer groups and stuff in some ways, obviously not in every way. There's all kinds of complexities, but that's a really interesting aspect of that.
Yeah, and so Jupiter symbolizes generosity and opportunity and expansion and freedom.
Yes, like confidence, spirit of discovery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because the ruling is in Sagittarius, which we're still in Sagittarius season. And we've talked at length about Sagittarius in our Sagittarius New Sign Who Dis episode.
Right.
And so it really does have that energy of, kind of exploration and discovery and opportunity and luck. And kind of making your luck in the world type of concept. Yeah.
And like that travel, both like the actual physical travel, but also the expanding of the mind.
Yes.
Travel in that way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think the thing is that, so everyone, because it's a 12-year cycle, you'll experience a Jupiter return every 12 years in your lifetime, which that just means that Jupiter comes back to the sign and even the specific degree, that it was at when you were born, which might not be on your birthday. And in fact, your sun return might not be on your birthday every year, actually. So, interesting. We could maybe talk more about that at a different time.
Sure.
But anyway, the point is, it's just like a 12-year cycle with Jupiter. So when you do have your Jupiter return, you can kind of know that maybe you're starting another 12-year cycle in your life. And so kind of look at those cycles more broadly too, because those things are happening.
Definitely. It's interesting too, like if you didn't know that before and you haven't thought about it, to sort of look back at those points in time and see if you can think about, what you were doing then, or sort of what was going on, and, see if you can see things show up. That's kind of an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. So
that's Jupiter.
Good old Jupiter.
It's a great name. I just really like the name Jupiter. It's strong.
I think it's supposed to be strong. It was like,
probably.
There was like the panel of the gods that all made like decisions together, and then Jupiter was like, no, it's all me now.
I'm Jupiter.
Like, don't you hear my name? I'm Jupiter, right?
I'm at the grand shrine.
Yes, exactly.
I can't get over that.
I know. It's over though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank goodness.
Okay, so the next planet is Saturn.
Yes, Saturn. So Saturn is pretty much further out than Jupiter.
Right.
So Jupiter had that 12-year cycle, and Saturn has a 29-year cycle, which means that it takes 29 years for Saturn to travel around the sun.
It's a long time.
It is a long time. So it's in a sign for, over 2 years, which kind of gives it, again, that collective experience of like everybody born within those couple, 2-3 years is going to share Saturn in whatever sign that it's in. So it's like that social kind of collective connection there. So Saturn symbolizes sort of authority, external authority, complexity, time, maturity, lessons, experience. Like, it's kind of some heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's like the wizened grandfather planet.
Yes. I like that. I like that image.
That's like
Saturn.
how I imagine it looking.
Yeah.
When you like picture it in your head, that's sort of how I imagine Saturn to look.
Yeah. Does he have glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like
And he's
that.
sort of like kind of just round.
Yeah.
And sort of small.
Like an owl.
Yeah, kind of. Like the rings I think about is like kind of hair, like tufts. I know.
That's just like
It's
an old
kinda cute.
professor.
Like an old professor. That's exactly right.
I like that.
I know.
That's kind of sweet. I think, Saturn it's interesting. And I think we don't talk about Saturn too often. We don't think about it too often. Kind of, I don't know. But this very important event that happens in your life is your Saturn return, which is really an opportunity. So your Saturn return happens after that 29-year period when Saturn is back in the sign, and then you can even go to the degree that it was specifically at, when you were born. And Saturn return, if you live long enough, will happen a second time and perhaps even a third time in your life, and really represents like gaining that wisdom, sometimes major changes in your life, major lessons that you learn, that you've had to learn, that you have to come to terms with. So I think, there's no bad signs, there's no bad planets, but I think Saturn can be pretty heavy.
It can be really rough. It can be really hard lessons, a lot of grief around things with Saturn.
Definitely.
Because it is kind of rigid and it is sort of matter of fact and a little exacting, and it's like, well, this is what's meant to happen, and it's like we might know those things, but actually having to live through them sometimes, those lessons are hard. With Saturn for sure. Yeah,
and I think if the moon is sort of that mother planet, Saturn's like the father planet.
Yeah. That's probably why people don't talk about it, because they don't want to.
Daddy issues.
It's not comforting. They don't like it. But certainly, like, Saturn is, like you said, there's no bad planets, there's no bad signs, and you need all of the different energies that work together. And Saturn it's so necessary. Like it's the structures that we respond to, and yes, sometimes it's the oppressive structures that we're under, but structure isn't always oppressive. Structure is necessary.
Yes.
So it's the structure. It corresponds to the boundaries, and boundaries are amazing and necessary.
It's part of how you feel safe.
Absolutely.
And know how to operate in the world. I always say I love rules. I'm like, give me some rules. Let me follow them. I love it.
Same. I'm like, I'm a rebel, but I'm a rule follower.
100%.
Because if they're not arbitrary, I understand that they're necessary, and that very much corresponds with Saturn's energy, and it again brings things into balance. Like when Jupiter sort of has like that vision, it's that visionary like social planet. Like Saturn is the thing that's like, okay, yeah, cool, but like how?
Like get and Saturn rules Capricorn, so it's very much like on the ground in a come on, get on the level here, come back.
And can you?
Yes.
Right? And are you going to right now, or do you need to wait for me to come back around, and then maybe at that point
then you'll be ready.
Exactly. Which sometimes people have trouble accepting, but But yeah, it's necessary. It's stodgy, so people are like, "Ooh, Saturn." But
I know.
Yeah, but we love him.
I think I love
Her.
Saturn.
I love them.
Absolutely.
We love them.
Absolutely love. So, moving to the next furthest planet, and these ones, like these last three, are really very far out there. Yes. So, Uranus is the next one. It has an 84-year orbit cycle, which again means that that's how long it takes to go once around the sun. So if you live a very long life, you may experience your Uranus return. I mean, whatever. Hopefully we all do, right?
Sure.
But by that time, I mean, you're 84. So that's a long time. So the lessons of Uranus are less personal lessons and more generational, attitudinal, sort of almost like zeitgeist, you know?
Yeah. Just such another interesting layer, and looking at that, like looking back at those generational periods, you know, and like what was sort of like happening at the time, and what were people like, and sort of what were they, you know, building and everything.
And Uranus stays in each sign for about 7 years based on, you know, that 84-year cycle. So it's really true. Like people who, I don't know, but are 8 years one way or the other of a different age than me, I'm like, you know, it starts to be like you can't relate to them very much anymore.
Isn't that interesting? That's kind of that sweet spot, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where that really starts to change. Anything under that, it's like, no. Yeah. We relate.
And maybe it's even different based on, I mean, the Uranus cycle, I'm not sure exactly where it lines up, like with the sun and all that stuff. Right. So it might not be 7 years on either end from your birthday.
Right,
obviously, there could be, you know, 3 years on one end or 4 on the other, whatever it is. But I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I really think that's interesting.
And like even like siblings who are born, you know, within the same family and, you know, maybe share other signs or don't, but they might have different Uranus placements. And, you know, anyway, it's interesting.
It is. Yeah. So Uranus is all about, I mean, it's similarly about like your intellect and stuff, but it's more of your unconventional way of thinking about things and looking at things. It's that out of the box thing.
Yes. Which, it rules Aquarius, so aligns perfectly with all of that sort of creativity, uniqueness, kind of surprise, awakenings, like unexpected, you know, things that you maybe are supposed to be learning or considering.
Yeah. Where Saturn is sort of the rules and the rule follower thing. Uranus is the rebel.
Yes, and I think also along with that, Uranus really synthesizes a lot of different energies too, and like doesn't reject anything because like, well, that doesn't fit. It's like, well, come on in, like we'll let you fit in here. You know, it's kind of very much like accepting and synthesizing lots of different things into one brand new thing. Yeah.
And that's how we get, you know, the changing of the old ways and sort of the breaking of those.
And like innovation and
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, Uranus, I mean, I gotta be honest, more interesting than I thought.
It totally is. It totally is. It's unfortunate that it's Uranus.
Well, you know, I know. There's other ways to pronounce that, so.
We are children.
You brought it up.
I am. I'm a child. It's okay. It's my Uranus placement's fault. I'm just kidding.
It might be.
It might be.
Where is it? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. It's just like everything else on my chart. It's either Scorpio or Sagittarius. It's Sagittarius.
Oh, well, obviously it's not Scorpio if you're acting like that.
Exactly. All my other Scorpio placements are like, ugh.
Oh, God.
Really?
This again.
Yeah. Stop. Sorry.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
All right. The next planet is Neptune, which I kind of love. So Neptune has a 165-year orbit.
Wow.
So 165 years to go around the sun.
That is where, well, maybe even with Uranus, but I feel like this is where it starts to get, like, where I can't conceptualize it anymore.
It's really far away.
Really far away.
And Neptune, so all these other planets are visible to the naked eye, especially, well, ending with Saturn. You can sometimes, I think, see Uranus too. You definitely see it with a telescope. But Neptune was discovered by mathematical calculation, not by observation.
That's insane.
I know.
Explain.
So astronomers realized that there were like, it was clearly a source of gravity, and they didn't know something was there, but something had a gravitational pull. And so they figured there must be something there. And then they like investigated it, and sure enough, there's a gigantic frozen planet there, and it's Neptune.
Imagine that being you.
Maybe it is me. I don't know.
Maybe, because by the time you get to that 164-year thing, I'm like, could be anything. Could be a different space-time continuum. Could be a parallel universe. We could have been there. We could have lived there. I don't know. None of everything breaks down at that point for me, at least.
No, it's true. And so we'll never experience a Neptune return in our lifetime because we don't live that long, at least not at this point.
Not at this point.
And Neptune is in the same sign for about 14 years.
Yeah.
So you even expand that sort of collective kind of people, that generational kind of feel. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's interesting the fact that you never experience a Neptune return, because you don't get to experience a Neptune return. You know what I mean? You don't get to see like what that does illuminate for you, or what that would, you never really get to have that.
I don't like that. Maybe that's what's bothering me. I don't like when things are so finite like that, and it's like, no, you will never. I don't appreciate.
Well, you could try to live 165 years if you want.
Well, who's to say that if you are on the other side, in the other plane or whatever, that you're maybe not aware?
Okay. That's true. You're right.
Can I just believe that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. I actually think that Neptune would approve of such an idea.
I kind of agree with that too.
Because Neptune is about imagination, ideals, illusion, spirituality, the depths. Neptune's like the god of the sea, and so you can kind of, the ocean has all the depths in the water and all that stuff like we've talked about. And it rules Pisces, which is that very deep universe collective kind of sign.
Dreamy.
Yes.
Yeah. They're probably pretty proud of me that I came up with that. Neptune's like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's great.
Yes.
It corresponds to all of those things. I did make a note that sometimes it can kind of correspond to that disillusionment sometimes.
Right. As with so many things in astrology and that we've talked about, there's always kind of that tendency to go too far, or a way that, maybe if you're less evolved, that you'll fall into a more, just a more negative kind of impact of that energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just depends on, how Neptune's functioning in your chart and everything, which we're not going to go all into that now, and like aspects and everything like that. Maybe eventually we will, but there is that possibility with it.
Well, and there's also the point that all of these planets can be in retrograde.
Right.
At any time, whenever they are in their cycle, or when you're born. And so if it's in retrograde when you're born, you may feel out of step with the norms, especially if, when it's in retrograde, it's in the same sign, but it's going backwards and then it goes back forwards. And sometimes it doesn't even change signs. It stays in the same sign going backward and forward. So someone could be born in one year and have, just for example, like Neptune in, Gemini, and have that be direct. Right. And then someone born shortly after can have Neptune in Gemini, but it can be retrograde. And then you're going to experience this type of stuff in a different way because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting. And then interesting to consider too, it being like a transpersonal or sort of generational planet and energy, and you might feel like that person that is sort of like, I don't quite get what everyone is saying or doing, or this is not, or I have to, not necessarily I don't, but or maybe that you process it differently, or you have to process it more, or you have to learn things a slightly different way from other people in order to sort of get there. And that's all okay, of course. Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, no, I think that's good to point that out. Neptune rules Pisces. Already said that.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's really good. The last planet is Pluto. So, as we know, poor Pluto in astronomy is not qualified as a planet anymore. And the other dwarf planets are also mentioned a lot in astrology. So it's not like astrology forgot about the other planets too,
Right.
but Pluto's technically a dwarf planet now, but it's still included just 'cause it's always been included.
Yes.
And it has really powerful energy. Pluto's on about a 250-year cycle,
Even more crazy.
which is wild. And you may know, or people may know, that the United States is experiencing its Pluto return currently.
Right. Crazy.
So it's huge transformation, endings, closure, transcendence, rebirth.
Yes.
It's that whole Scorpio energy because Pluto rules Scorpio.
Yep. Yeah. It's for a little planet that some people decided to demote. It's intense. It's an intense energy.
Yeah.
Life, death, metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Resurrection, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I also think something that is really interesting is that both fear and the transcendence of fear are within Pluto's realm.
That's really, really intense. I'm going to have to sit with that for a bit.
Yeah, like it's serious stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very intense. Very, very heavy. Very, very necessary. All of it. I mean, it's the essence of everything. It's life and death.
Yes, no, exactly. And Pluto's in the same sign for a little over 20 years, 21, 22 years. And so, again, that energy is shared collectively amongst sort of it really is that generational level,
yes.
you know? And you can see that changes. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's evident. Like, we're talking about this and like it's all symbolic and all that. But like when you talk about it and you think about it and you think about like the world and people that you know and yourself and all of this stuff, I mean, it's there.
It is there. If you trace it back and actually look at things, there's evidence for it there. It's amazing, actually.
Definitely. So, okay, we got through the planets.
I feel like it got like progressively more intense.
I agree. And you know what? Like, I actually expected kind of the opposite because I think we don't spend a lot of time talking about these further out collective, generational outer planets. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's bringing up things. There's even more that I feel like I need to go back and kind of review some like aspects and things that I thought I was aware of, but now I'm like, wait, I don't know this off the top of my head, and I really need to kind of like look at that again and see. I also really want to listen to like the symphonies, like the planets, while I'm doing it.
Yes.
I feel like they really capture like
I think that's a great idea.
Energy of them.
I know. I want to do that too.
Especially Jupiter. Jupiter fits really well. If you want to like listen to that while you're doing it, it's really good.
Yeah. We should include information on how to find that.
Well, link that, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be in the show notes. So.
Yeah.
I feel like ending on Pluto is very heavy and very interesting.
Yeah.
And yet, I'm happy. I'm really happy. I feel like I personally learned a lot by having this discussion.
I learned a ton from you. I learned all these really interesting things.
I learned a lot from you,
I
too.
love that.
Yes.
That's why we do what we do.
That is why.
Yeah. Do you feel better?
I do. I feel better.
That's good.
It's a weird time, but I feel better.
That's good. That's all I care about.
Thank you. Well, all right. I guess that about does it. So, until next time.
Stay witchy, friends.
And stay dumb.
Dumb Witch Club is written and produced by us, Ashley Sidner.
And Jackie Gerard at the Dumb Witch Clubhouse in Orange County, California.
Produced and edited by Matt Heinemeyer. Creative Director and Culture Consultant, Violet Turner.
Original music by Ashley Sidner. And look us up on all your favorite social media platforms, including Patreon.
Until next time, stay witchy, friends.
And stay dumb.